What's happening, everyone? It's Kyle from the Magpie 24/7 podcast, and we're here for part 2 of the player rating / keep or sell video / podcast. It's a bit of a weird title, I'm aware of that, but it's if you missed the last episode, we went through the goalkeepers and the defenders, and we're going to go through the midfielders and you are.
It certainly wasn't the easiest of tasks. We always knew, I think, the defence and the goalkeeping situation certainly wasn't a high point of the season. Of Newcastle conceding so many goals and failing to keep clean sheets. So this one hopefully should be a lot more positive after we get past Jonjo Shelvey, of course.
We'll probably be ending on a negative as well, because we'll do a rating for Bruce. But mate, we might as well get straight back into it. We'll start with Isaac Hayden. Another player, and I feel like it's a theme, but it's another player that's throughout the season. But when he has been involved, I feel like he's been one of our better players, Hayden. So for me, it's not going to be a very high rating, because like many of the players before him, he hasn't played all season. But for me, I think Hayden's got to get a 6 out of 10. Solid. When called upon, decent. There's been a couple of people on Twitter actually been slating his technical ability. Now, I've never known him for being a technical midfielder, but in terms of sitting in front of a back four and breaking up play, he's excellent at it. But towards the end of the season, before he picked up his season-ending injury, they played him on the right-hand side, and he looked out with his stiff a little bit. Where he was relied on to get the ball forward and take him more of a box to box role, and I don't understand that, because Hayden's not a box to box midfielder. He never has. He never will be. He's a defensive midfielder. That's it.
He's a professional, a very professional and honourable man. I think we both agree with that. And I think if you asked him to do any job, I think he's played at centre back quite a few times this season as well. He will do a job and he'll not complain about it. But as I always used to say back when I was teaching, if you've got, if you look at the animal kingdom and you try and draw similarities, you wouldn't ask a giraffe to go swimming. You wouldn't ask a fish to go and eat some leaves from a tall tree. You play to the strengths is what I'm trying to get at. And with Isaac Hayden, his strengths come in those battling qualities, his bravery, he's willing to put the body on the line, his interceptions. It's not going to be his shooting. His shooting accuracies, I think, it's 13%. He's only played 24 times this season. No goals. 6 wins only out of those 24 appearances. But what he does is a vital job in the team. A la in previous years, a Czech Tiote or a David Batty, in that a player who will do the dirty work so that others, like Alan St. Maximans and your flair players, can get on the ball and do what they do well. You wouldn't ask ASM to be a holding midfielder, would you? I mean, Bruce is Raji, but surely he's not that Rajed in the head. Isaac Hayden is a battling type of player. I think he's a player who could do a job potentially higher up the table. I like him, but yes, this season he hasn't been available enough. He got injured. Again, we'll say with a caveat, it's not his fault that he got injured, but you've got to take it into consideration when you're scoring these players. 24 appearances this season. If he's fit and available, I think if we were the manager of Newcastle, either myself or yourself, we would have Isaac Hayden in the team. No doubt about it. Cracking player, but I think 6 out of 10 is a decent score for him, given his contributions on the field this season.
Well, since we're not managers, Paul, we're going to have to rate him. A 6 out of 10 I've put, 6 out of 10 you put is a fairly fair assessment of him, in our opinion, anyway. But easy, straightforward. Keep Isaac Hayden for me. In terms of a defensive midfielder, I think he's pretty good. It's just a technical side that you could say, but if he has a good foil, someone who can pass a ball competently and move and do midfield things, I think he'd be all right. I think he would have been a great player for Joe Willock.
But definitely. it's about combinations when you go to the middle. If I think about Newcastle midfield, I think about great combinations. I think of David Batty and I think of Rob, like a Rob Lee. You're looking back down the years, and it's those sort of players that stand out in the combinations in the middle. And I think an Isaac Hayden would be absolutely fantastic for Joe Willock. And I hope that Isaac Hayden had a little whisper in Joe Willock's ear whilst he was up here to tell him that there is a life after Arsenal. You can come through their system, and then you can make a very good career for yourself there in the North East. So, are you all right?
Yeah, I completely agree, mate. I think Hayden's made something of himself at Newcastle, and Joe Willock can do the same. I'd love to see him come up here, but more on Joe Willock in a bit. So half of part 2 will probably be about this next one, because me and Paul, and I'm sure many is listening as well, dislike this player a lot. It comes to something when the highlight of your season is drunkenly about Chelsea winning the Champions League. Jeff Hendrick, Paul, what is your rating for the season for Jeff Hendrick? Go on, be honest.
He's a preview of what I'm going to be giving Steve Bruce as well. It's got to be 0. What has he offered? He scored 1 goal. Was it at the first goal that he had that
2.
amazing start when we absolutely caught West Ham cold? And since then, the Irish Jesus, or whatever he was once dubbed, has got worse and worse and worse. He is the epitome of signing someone just because he's free. The only 2 people in the world who seem to rate this lad is Sean Dyche and our manager. Nobody else has got a positive word to say about him. When England played against Ireland, I thought he was absolutely pathetic as well on the international stage. He's not great at doing the defensive work. He's not great at doing the attacking work. He can't pass 2 yards sideways. He does get you the odd goal somehow, but apart from that, what else does he do? And I think he's been an awful bit of business for Newcastle. I know we signed him on a free and stuff, and I know that. Let's face it, Bruce ain't going to get rid of him in a month of in a month of Sundays. But again, if I was the Newcastle United manager, he would be straight out of the door. I'd have no use for him whatsoever. He's played 22 appearances, so he's made 22 appearances this season for Newcastle. 2 goals, 9 appearances in those 22 games. But some of those appearances were like he'd be coming on in the 93rd minute, and I'd be saying to my missus, yeah. And I've seen it.
Keep on with it.
Yeah. Oh my word! You definitely. The thing is, I'll be saying, oh no, he's not bringing Jeff Hendrick on, and she'd be like, "What? You're in stoppage time? What are you complaining about?" And I'd be saying, "Yeah, but he's still going to he's going to find a way to fuck this up in a new way to piss me off." And he's the sort of player where if you're watching from home, I could pick the TV up and quite willingly lob the bastard out the back door, because he can come on in the 93rd minute, and after 95 minutes, you've gone and fucked it all up. But the stats aren't great. Shooting accuracy 20%, mate. Cross accuracy 33%. I'm surprised it's in double figures, to be honest. But this is the Premier League website that I'm getting all the stats and figures and stuff like that. Big chances created in the entire season, one big chance created, and it was probably against that West Ham on that West Ham match where he looked decent. But apart from that, you look at him, and it's the same way that I look at Christian Atsu. When he used to play, and I'd be like, what's he doing? Is he walking the dog? Is he checking his online banking? What's he doing? Because he's not putting a shift in. He's not breaking a sweat. He's not doing anything offensively, defensively, or in the passing of the ball. So he offers fuck all to me in Newcastle's machinery. And You know that I believe that central midfield is a huge area of concern and a huge area that I think we need work in. And Jeff Hendrick is not the bastard answer Steve Bruce. Don't know what Mrs. Bruce is putting in his apple pie, but he's off his tits.
If Jeff Hendrick's the answer, what is the question? That would be it. Like, but speaking of midfielders not capable to be, well, not good enough for the club. Oh dear. We're moving on to Jonjo, Paul, and out of all the midfielders this season, we've probably spoke about Jonjo the most. I've probably argued with people on Twitter the most about this bloke.
He is divisive, no doubt about it.
He's certainly controversial. Is Jonjo Shelvey? For me,
he's absolutely shite.
This season he's been abysmal. He played well against Fulham last game of the season, but that's it. He doesn't do enough. I think he had maybe 1 or 2 assists, 1 goal against Newport. Actually, no, 2 goals he scored against Aston Villa. No, Crystal Palace as well. It just shocking, to be honest. I just do not rate Shelvey at all. We need a passing midfielder next season. 24%
shooting accuracy. Let's have a look at some of the other stats, because people like to chuck stats about Jonjo. Me, when I go to watch the football, I go to watch certain things, and especially when you're at the ground, I like to, and I'll stop during certain matches watching some of the action as much and watch individual things going on. And what you'll see with Jonjo Shelvey is he's like a crab, right? He will move side to side to side to back to side, and that is all he does the entire game. And he sits so deep, and this is one of the major problems with Newcastle and why I think we need work in the middle. He drops so deep he could hold hands with Fernandes. And some of the times, what it needs is for one of the defenders to say, "Oi, you're in my area, piss off 10, 20 yards further up the pitch," because...
But he's the captain, Paul. We can't be having any of that.
Yeah, nobody should let him even touch that armband. He shouldn't be anywhere near the conversation for who's going to be the leader in Lascelles' absence. He is an absolute and utter embarrassment. It's not the Jonjo Shelvey of a few years ago. And if you are using him, he should be at the edge of the box. But at the moment, I've seen him played as an emergency centre-back. I've seen him playing as a deep midfielder. And the trouble is, when we play 3 at the back with 2 wing-backs, that can be 5 across the back. You've then got Jonjo Shelvey dropping so deep he could hold hands with Fernandes. So that's like 6 bodies back, when what you want is somebody further forward. And this myth about Hollywood balls. Why do you want Hollywood balls when we're scrapping for our lives? We haven't got room for luxury like Jonjo, and he might look better in a team that has more possession and stuff. But to me, he looks unfit. Sometimes, I mean, I know he looked a little bit more fit towards the end of the season, but for the majority of the season, when he's tracking back, he stops running. It looks as if he's been smoking 40 fags before he's came out onto the park. He doesn't score enough goals. 1 goal last season. He doesn't do enough defensively. Yes, he's got these Hollywood passes that he knocks forward occasionally, but so can Fabian Schär do that, but he doesn't get the grandeur. He is on over £80,000 a week. Some people say up to £90,000 a week. I think he is the most overplayed, overhyped player that we've had in such a long time. Shooting accuracy 21%. 21%. He's had what? Let's have a look. Goals per match 0.03. Oh, that's absolutely fantastic. Passes per match. On average, 46 passes. How many of them were sideways or backwards? I'd argue most of them. And he gets the ball, and you want to move it really, really quickly. And he just sucks the life out of any sort of forward momentum. And if you look at other teams who in their midfield, like a Leicester or one of the top end teams, and you look at them and they're so athletic and they move around so quickly and stuff. But with Jonjo, everything he does seems to be in slow bastard motion. And again, he's another one of those players like Jeff Hendrick, where I could pick up the TV monitor, lob it out the back door, and then get a bat to it and just literally smash the TV up. because he does my tits in. And like I said, when we went to go to the ground to watch him, I'm watching him there, and we're playing awful football. We're playing Bruce ball 101. And for the first half especially, he was way too deep. But as captain, is he being a leader? Is he cajoling people? Is he organising people? No. He's on mute the entire game. And I'm screaming. And if I was there on the touchline, I'd be screaming and shouting. I'd be trying to fire people up. And he just literally, he's like a wet fart. He's that useful. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm just looking at it now. I personally would free transfer him. I'd get rid of him. I'd get rid of the wages, whatever it is. But there are people, mate, who absolutely think he's the dog's bollocks. I just think it's the dog's ass. I'm sorry. I really, really, really can't stand what I see as a lack of work ethic and an anchor to our midfield, and he is making the problems in our central midfield worse because he can't move. He needs a mobility scooter, mate, to get round.
Yeah, I mean, for me, mate, to try and break it down a little bit more objectively where he's concerned, Jonjo, it's like, for me, I've said this a couple of times on the podcast this season in games where, fair enough, against your Man Cities, against your Chelsea, against your top teams, I don't expect them to have much of an impact because his defensive position like that leaves a lot to be desired. But against these teams in and around, where against your Brightons, against your West Broms, against your Fulhams, and all these, against these lower sides, I'd expect a player of Jonjo Shelvey's calibre, with his ability on the ball, one, which we know he has. When he puts his mind to it, he can be a good player. Two,
yeah, he has been a good player.
Three, the amount we pay him per week. He's our second highest earner, Paul. I'd expect Jonjo Shelvey, a player his calibre, his skill, his ability with the ball, to take a game to the likes of West Brom, the likes of Wolves, those teams in and around us. I'd expect Jonjo Shelvey to make an impact. Jonjo Shelvey played well in one of them games, and that was Fulham, last game of the season, when nothing was riding on it, and it was kind of a nothing game. But still a good result. We'll still beat them, but still,
nothing result. What we need is to stand up in the bigger games, mate. 36% tackle success rate goes to show you that if somebody runs by Jonjo, right, his option is either to stop and literally to be out of breath, nearly having a heart attack, or it's to hack him, or it's to pull his shirt to give away a needless yellow card and a free kick. That's his basic locker, and then that Hollywood ball that he plays from literally holding Fernandez's hand.
Well, one thing I think Graham Jones has done well is he played Jonjo deeper, because in the early part, the mid part of the season, we were getting caught out nearly every week because of Jonjo being out of position too far up the field, because he'd do this weird thing where he'd press on his own and then leave 30, 40 yards behind him, loads of space.
And he can't run.
But when they changed to the wing-back system, they played Jonjo Shelvey further back. And I think that helped with the defensive position and stuff, where he slightly improved, because all he had to do was decide what's passing, and get the ball to the wing backs. That's all he had to do, and he did that okay. That's why, for me, he gets a 3 instead of a 2.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have given absolutely nothing. I mean, I really, really, really think he is one of the players who needs to accept a lot of blame to what's gone wrong. He doesn't do anywhere near enough. And yes, I do take your point. Since Graham Jones came in and towards the end of the season, they found a way to mask his inadequacies, because you're quite correct. He was leaving too much space behind him. But now the alternative, mate, how we are at the moment is he's that far defensive and he's that worried about it. He is holding hands with Fernandez, and he's getting in the road of the of the defence, and why are we having to make so many exceptions to be able to include this player who, to me, offers so little? It's unbelievable. And then if you're listening again, if you're watching the games at the moment, I was watching one or two of the games with no sound on towards the end of the season, and all the way through you could hear Graham Jones, Jonjo, do this, and he needed guiding through the games, and it was like, Jonjo, you need to be doing this. Jonjo, get back. And it was constant instructions to him, and he's supposed to be a senior pro at the club. He is one of the highest paid players at the club, and yet he is having to be mollycoddled in a way that a Jamal Lewis could really benefit from, but can't, because he's so-called captain and leader in Jonjo Shelvey is having to get it instead, because I don't know, is he lacking football knowledge? Is he lacking a bit of hunger? Does he need a move to be able to re-engage? Because, back at Swansea and stuff, he used to score goals. He was so dangerous. You'd be shit scared of him at set pieces when he was arriving late in the box and whatnot. And he's capable of a lot better. And I would thank him for seasons gone by. But I just think, again, this season, yes, he's played 30 times, so he stayed a lot fitter and healthier. That's great. That's a big tick. But when you have played, you've done nowhere near what I would expect. S.Longstaff has got absolute pelters, right? But with some people, Jonjo, to me, just gets an easy ride, and he certainly doesn't get an easy ride off me, because you're looking at the stats, which people keep saying to us all of the time: shooting accuracy 21%. And then you're looking at your tackle success rate 36%. And there was a time that we were playing him as centre back, mate, and you were like, "Oh, it might be good for them." I'm like, I'm shitting myself. I've got Emil Kraft one side, and I've got Jonjo Shelvey the other. I don't want either of those bastards to touch the ball. I just thought, just get it back to the keeper, get it back to the guy. Every time they touched the ball, I was like, "Oh my word!" But it just makes me shit.
At centre-back, the only way I was happy with that remotely was because he's so deep, he can't be caught out of position, one. And then two, none of our defenders could pass. So it was like Shelvey could pass the ball out.
He's an automatic.
That's the only reason I wouldn't have him. I wouldn't like have him there every week or anything. Just as an alternative.
It could be caught in bed with Mrs. Bruce, and Steve Bruce would come in and wrap a blanket around him, because he's that much of a Brucey boy. He's one of his blue chip people. And you know what? Like back in the day, we used to have, like, say Bobby Robson, he used to have his blue chip players, but there were good players like Gary Speed and Rob Lee and Shearer and Nobby Solano and Shea Given, etc., etc., etc. Those were his blue chip players. Steve Bruce has decided to have blue chip players who are absolutely fucking just shit-tards, fuck-tards. I just can't rate them as footballers. This is not judging them as men or charity work to do or family. It's none of that. It's purely on the football. The football that Jonjo Shelvey has played, mate, has been nothing short of absolutely shite for a player on 80 grand a week, one of our top earners. And I would much rather... Bruce won't. He'll keep him, and he'll be a starter next season. I've no doubt about it. But if I was rating him, he would get a very, very, very low score. I would sell all day long.
I think we can get a better midfielder than Jonjo Shelvey, someone who's a bit more mobile, can pass the ball, and
mate, Rob Lee coming out of retirement would be all mobile. What about Rob Lee would be better. I'd rather get Rob Lee out of retirement. Bring back Jonah. Anyone. Honestly, man, anybody's better than
more
this.
Movement. Yeah, I mean, I'd sell Jonjo, but yeah, I mean, as a squad player,
I can see the comments like up on this one, like
his wages significantly for me, like. But yeah, for the next midfielder, I mean, let me know what you think regarding Jonjo, but we're going to move on to the next midfielder now. We might as well go through both brothers, mate, and see what you think. But yeah, we'll start with Matty, because it's been a really frustrating season for Matty Longstaff, not really getting a game here and there. The only games he played were against top 6 sides away from home. So it's been a really frustrating season for him. I don't even know what to give Matty. It might be harsh, but the highest I can give him probably is a 4. I wanted to see more Matty. Like most fans wanted to see more Matty Longstaff, considering up until we signed Joe Willock, we didn't have anything in the midfield at all. So Matty not being played was bizarre. Or he didn't get loaned out. That was even more bizarre.
5 appearances, mate.
Really frustrating. It's not more the rating for Matty, mate. I think it's more the keep or sell, mate, where the opinion will hold any value to summon him up this season. For me, it's a difficult one, but I'd probably sell Matty, because if Steve Bruce is going to be staying, like that's the scenario that we've put for this podcast / video, where Matty ain't going to play. He's just wasting his career, and his contract's up next year. And if Bruce was to stay on another year after that, then Matty's just going to be in the cold all of his career. And I want
surely Bruce is in the retirement home long before then. Let's just pray that Mrs. Bruce does the honourable thing and puts him in a retirement home, because he is getting on my wig. The amount of times, mate, he has banged on, oh, I like Matty Longstaff. I like him. I want him to stay. There's a long-term plan for him. Blah, 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 blah. And then on the other hand, he does exactly the opposite to what he's just said. He's had, just say 5 appearances or something this entire season. That after persuading him to stay at the 11th hour last summer. I agree with you. We might as well sell him. If we're not going to play him, sell him, because a lot of the time, local talent, you think of even Ivan Toney, who's come through, who's in the youth setup. You think of Adam Armstrong. Sometimes with local lads, they've got to move sideways before they can move forward. Look, even Shiva, you know what I mean? You've got to move sideways before you can move forward. So I think you've got to sell him, because you're not playing him. You clearly don't rate him, Brucey, so you're talking more shite. You've got to let him go and let him find his way, maybe at a championship club, and then he can do what he can do very, very well. And I'm confident that he's a Premier League player of the future. But through Steve Bruce's poor management of the lad, we are going to lose out, no doubt about it. It'll be another team's benefit, but we might as well let him go now, get some sort of fee in for him. Because what's the point of keeping a player who Bruce will never, ever pick? And when you've got players playing out of position in front of you, and you're fit and available and you're on the bench, or if there's an injury and you're playing somebody out of position to cover that injury, and you're on the bench, what is the point? And there's been stuff said about Bruce doesn't like he's got too beefed up, or this, that, and the other over the summer, hasn't been happy with this, that, and the other. It's absolute horseshit. We could have used Matty Longstaff a lot this season. Bruce has said, oh, he's injured and this, that, and the other. It's horseshit. It's just absolute more crap from that man's mouth, and every time he moves it, you just know he's telling lies. But I'm really frustrated about Matty, because with all of the problems, mate, that we have had in the middle of the park, to be given so few opportunities, and when he has been given opportunities in the most ridiculous of circumstances, what is the point? Steve Bruce, masterclass, Bruce 101, mate. And no,
it really pisses me off because I think, like, if it was up to me, I'd keep Matty Longstaff and I would have given him more chances. But Bruce he gave him a big shirt, he gave him a new contract. The number 4 shirt, many good midfielders in Newcastle's history's worn it.
Yeah.
And it's like, not even giving him a chance. The chances he was given against big teams away from home, fed to the Sharks, basically. And it's just like, for the good of Matty's career, if Steve Bruce is still Newcastle manager next season, he needs to find a new club. Because
agreed.
At the end of the day, he's going to have another season of this shit. Where he's, oh, well, I like Matty and not play him. It's just bullshit.
See, there's one thing, mate, does the other. Typical Steve.
Exactly. Typical. It's Steve Bruce down to a flipping nutshell. But yeah, so it's heavy heart. I'd rather Matty stayed, but under Bruce not happening. And the thing is, mate, I feel exactly the same about Sean. Sean's had a couple of more chances than Matty, but he hasn't really played well and he hasn't looked the same since Bruce came in. I think it's like Jamal Lewis, as we mentioned in the last podcast. It's literally a case of he needs the arm around the shoulder. He needs that bit of confidence, and I don't think he's getting coached under Bruce. I really don't. I don't think there's any in there at all.
Where's the nurturing with these young players? He's played 22 appearances last season, of which 7 of them were substitute appearances. No goals at all from S.Longstaff. S.Longstaff is a number 10. He's a player who you want at the edge of the box in the Miggy sort of role, taking shots on goal. And you look at some of the goals that he has scored, and they're from that area. And he can be really effective. He can find little pockets of space. He can get shots away. I think there's a potential for a cracking player in there. But we will never get to know whether he's going to be a cracking player or not if he isn't played and played in his position. And if you're going to play him, don't stick him next to Jonjo, because he has to do two lots of running. And this is one of the players who does statistically the most running in the entire team is done by Sean when he's actually playing. But when you're next to Jonjo Shelvey, you've got to do the running for him and the running for yourself as well. So he has to do 2 lots of work. But again, it's another one, mate, that really, really pisses me off with Steve Bruce, because he talks the talk with Sean. Oh, I like him. I get on with the family, this, that, and the other. It's pure horseshit. Look at the appearances and look at how he's used him. And how many times has he played in his actual position? It's another case of being Bruced. It is another case of Bruce Ball 101, fucking over a player with massive potential, who Manchester United at one point were interested in. It was side by side, him and Declan Rice. Now look at the situation. Who are you going to put him beside to compare him in the Premier League?
Well, because Declan Rice at the Euros, and S.Longstaff is not
sitting in
Newcastle. Tells you all you need to know, mate. Sean, it's a difficult one, because we've seen when he first came onto the scene under Rafa and stuff, he looked amazing. The 50 million was not enough for S.Longstaff at once upon a time. Now you take 5 for Sean, and it's a difficult one, because I really like both lads, NA29 and all that, but they're not getting coached under this manager. They're not getting nurtured or given any guidance at all under this manager. I just feel like they're going to get the best versions of them by playing for different managers, different teams. They're not going to get it under Steve Bruce.
Yeah, I've just looked at his stats, mate, and his stats from season upon season. We're talking about big chances created, crosses, crossing accuracy, shooting accuracy. It's going down season upon season. Now,
well, it will, no doubt.
Where's the ability to make these players better, mate? You're making them worse. You absolute fucking idiot. And he calls himself a Geordie manager, and he's making other Geordie players worse. It's such an emotive thing. We've been a lad through the youth system, bread and butter, passionate Newcastle United fan. You're thinking, yeah, it's opening up for you. Go and fill your boots. But he's getting worse. He's being bruised in front of our eyes.
Yeah, he is. And to go on his rating 4 out of 10, he's had a couple of howlers this season. I remember Leeds away. I think that's the worst single performance this season out of any of our players. He gave away 3 goals, and he was pretty flipping poor, like. But yeah, for me, it's just not gonna get any better for him with Steve Bruce as his manager. Just ain't Matty.
He's really professional player.
And there is a brilliant player in the two of them. You know, it's just not under this.
play though.
manager. If Bruce was to leave, then 100% give these lads a chance. But Bruce ain't, in the scenario this one, we're looking at it like he's going to be here next season. So these two need to find new teams. For 4 out of 10 for Sean, 3 out of 10 for Matty, and both of them are sell. I know the Geordie lads and stuff, and everybody likes the story of the local lad and stuff. Obviously, I'm one of those that love that kind of story, being from the same part of the world. But I just, I can't let I don't want to see them go through another year of just utter wasting their career, wasting their time, because they're better than that. They deserve a hell of a lot better than what Steve Bruce has gave them this season.
They would go somewhere else, mate, and do well. No doubt about it.
Yeah, 100% they would. But to move on to last centre midfielder, obviously Joe Willock, and I think from this lad coming in January, I think a lot of people were uncertain about him. Arsenal fans were happy to see the back of him, but for me, came into this team, scored 8-9 goals, and was absolutely phenomenal. For me, it's a 9 out of 10. The highest rating so far. I know he's only played half a season, and he's been in a lot of it.
It's been 10. It would have been 10.
Yeah, he's been absolutely superb for Newcastle. We've got to sign him. I've spoke about this over many a podcast where he's won with games on his own and being like, we've got to sign this lad. We've got to sign him. Not £20 million for Joe Willock is a steal in today's market, where the box-to-box midfielder is hard to come by. We need a box-to-box midfielder. Joe Willock's just scored 8 goals, 8-9 goals, scored 6 in 6. The last player to do that was Alan Shearer for Newcastle United, and we're talking about 20 million as if it's too much. They've got to break the bank for this lad. If Miggy Almiron's worth 20 million, Joe Willock's worth flipping 30. Do you know what I mean, mate? Like, nothing against Miggy, no disrespect towards Miggy. I love Miggy, but Willock is a brilliant footballer, mate. He's a good box-to-box, gets on the edge of the box, hungry, determined, type of... As Maximin says, you've got to build your team around players like this. Joe Willock, 9 out of 10, keep all day long.
It is a no-brainer, mate. Even surely the simpleton that runs our football club on a day-to-day basis, Penfold, has to see that. At the end of the day, he's a 20-odd-year-old player who's come in and scored 8 goals, which is more goals than anybody else has scored for Arsenal over the same period. He's come in, he's outscored the likes of De Bruyne. And where else can you go to in the league and get an English player who's capable of scoring those goals as a box-to-box type midfielder for that sort of money? Half a Joelinton, you know? You look at the money that we've wasted on wages on the likes of Atsu and Henri Savé and the likes, and just how much money as a club we do waste, the wages given to Jeff Hendrick and co. And then you've got a lad like this, you know, shooting accuracy of 57%. He's coming there and he's everything that a Jonjo Shelvey isn't. So he is athletic, he is energetic, he is hungry, he's got a chip on his shoulder, he wants to prove everybody wrong. Look at the Fulham goal. And I know people will say, I got a bit lucky. You make your own luck in football sometimes. He ran from inside his box to the other side of the pitch, and he earned that little bit of luck in the box. A fantastic finish. He's getting shots away. I love the fact he comes in, he says to St. Maximin, first thing he says is, I will be stood on the edge of the box. Get me the fucking ball. No messing around, stepping up, being a man. He seems to thrive under the pressure of it all. He likes being the focal point of a team. He speaks well. He communicates well. He's very articulate. He's very intelligent. He's got good football intelligence. He's in the right place at the right time. He's got a good shot on him. And if he was a foreign footballer coming into Arsenal, I think he'd have done really well and he'd been an established first-team player. I don't think he fits into Arteta's system, if I'm being totally honest. I know he's an Arsenal lad, but I think he's been bitten by the bug. I think he wants to stay. I think his father wants him to stay. I think he can feel the love in him. I think he likes that. He didn't get that at Arsenal, but I get that Arsenal is his club and everything. But you have to move heaven and earth. You could bring him in for 20 million, mate, and he can play for you for 11, 12, 13 years, no problem at all. He'll score your goals, which will keep you up in the league. And he is everything as an example to the rest of the players of what you can be. And I think as a partnership, if you were playing the two, Isaac Hayden and Joe Willock could work really, really nicely and well together. I just beg the club, if they want to make one common sense decision that it's going to get seats on arses for next season, if we're still under the ownership of Mike Ashley, right, which is a possibility. I hope it isn't, but it is a possibility. Then signing this lad is a complete and utter no-brainer. Nobody else has done in the league what he has done. And he has been an absolute breath of total fresh air coming into the club. And it's been a joy to watch him. And if he does come back in an Arsenal shirt next season, then he'll still get all the respect in the world from me. But it puts another nail in the coffin, and it increases my frustration with Bruce, with Charnley, with Mike Ashley. Don't penny pinch, mate. Bring this lad in. If he was here all season, he'd have got a 10, no doubt about it. But I totally agree with you, 9 out of 10. Well deserved. Thank you, Joe Willock, for just restoring my faith. And totally opposite end of the spectrum to Jonjo Shelvey.
A massive part of us staying up. Yeah. Huge credit to him. If he's played his last game in a Newcastle shirt, then fair play to him. He's done really well here. But I will say that he'd never get loved at Arsenal as much as what he got loved at Newcastle United. Yeah. That's for damn sure. But he even managed to have his own catchphrase as well, which makes it more heartbreaking if he doesn't come back. Come on, you Maggies! It was class that as well, especially the one in front of the crowd. But if it's a last we've seen,
he knows. Absolutely. But I just think Arteta's going to want to have a little look at him. I see this one playing out. I really do. But you would have to be the world's biggest idiot to not bring this in. But I just worry that Lee Charnley is that said idiot.
Yeah, Lee Charnley, come on down. But yeah,
Mark, stop crying. I know Mark will be crying about that. He doesn't like me attacking Lee Charnley.
Aye, but yeah, we'll move on to the wingers. Paul, the first winger, probably the biggest disappointment of the season for me. Ryan Fraser brought this lad in on a free transfer, but it was seen as a really good bit of business by Newcastle. But he's done nothing for Newcastle, but seems to get fit enough to play for Scotland every international break. Yeah, I was really happy when this lad came in. Pace, good cross, strong, good footballer. Linked to Arsenal a couple of years ago for 20, 30 million. And for me, it seemed a no-brainer. And he just came in. He looks lazy. He looks lethargic. He just doesn't look he just still looks off the pace to me.
It reminds me of Damien Duff.
Bang on. Reminds a lot of Damien Duff. Big reputation. Comes to Newcastle. Does got all room. The thing is, for me, I'd give him a 2 out of 10. Right, shite season, but I still think there's a player in there. I don't know. Like, I feel if someone could just unlock that potential and just give his head a shake and get the best out of him, I feel he could really do something for Newcastle. Because at the start of the season, fans spoke about this front four in a 4-2-3-1. Spoke about Max and Miggy in the middle. Not a pun, I promise. Fraser on the left, and then them behind Wilson, and that's a front four. That combination never got used all season, which is bizarre. I'd still like to see that together.
I will put a slight caveat in that, because the thing is, Bruce talked about this, didn't he? And he said, well, the reason why we're struggling during that absolutely, well, I look at the season as a shit sandwich. It was all right at the beginning, it was a lump of shit in the middle, and it was all right at the end. But during that shit period, where we couldn't literally get a win for nothing, he's coming out with, well, I haven't been able to play all of them together, and he's coming out with his book of excuses from, a la Pardew excuse bingo. It was Brucey excuse bingo. But then he would leave him on the bench and not use him. And you're like, well, you're saying that, but you're leaving him on the bench. And then he went through a stage when I think his confidence was that shot to shit that sometimes these injuries just have a habit of happening, because you're a confidence player and your confidence is gone. You don't feel like the manager's particularly backing you or particularly rates you or this, that, and the other. Then when he has come in, he's looked so unfit and so off it. And then you're worrying that the player who refused to play for Bournemouth is a trouble causer, and you're Damien Duff 2.0. But you're totally right. You hit the nail on the head. A couple of seasons ago, Chelsea and Arsenal were like a fly round shit after this lad. So there is a player in there, and you see him play internationally when he's playing with a bit more purpose, and you think, yeah, and obviously he knows how Callum Wilson likes the ball played to him, and they've got that connection from the time at Bournemouth and everything. But I think it's a keep for this season. But you're right, he scores low, but with the caveat in next season, mate, you've got to get yourself fit for Newcastle United. Respect the fact that we're getting you fit and we're paying you handsomely to come in to do a job. You need to get your head out your ass. Persuade Bruce to give you an opportunity. And when Bruce gives you an opportunity, he needs to take it, mate, because he's got all the talent in the world. But if he hasn't got his head in the right place, as we saw with Damien Duff, then it's going to be a catastrophe. But there's no doubt a Ryan Fraser of a couple of years ago dropped into the Newcastle attack could potentially be huge. It could be a massive tool in our arsenal going forward. But it's up to the player himself and to Bruce as well to manage him, to get him into that situation, mate. Because you're quite right, we were both excited and looking forward to this lad to see what he could do. But he's done absolutely fuck all for me in 18 appearances. During that time, only 3 wins. It's not what we expected. No goals in the league for him, which is obviously the bread and butter that we're talking about today, aren't we? But I'm just looking at his stats. His defensive work is not particularly great. We're putting the tackle in, and then going forward, shooting accuracy 46% is nowhere near what it should be. Passes per match averaging 14.5. Crossing accuracy 24%, mate. 24% cross accuracy for the lad.
We have seen.
He's capable.
We have seen the ability to cross. It is there. It's just.
But how many times have we said this? He's been bruised.
Yeah, true. It's a difficult one because I don't think he's really applied himself either. I think a little bit of that as the player too. But
yeah,
I'd give him another season. If it doesn't work out, then I'd show him the door. Because there is a quality player in there, and that's the only reason.
And I'll be telling him.
Time.
Yeah, I'd say, look, you're an important part of my plans, but I need you to put the performances out on the park. Yeah, get your shit together, because we're going to look at it at the end of next season, and I need to see a lot better performance from you if you want to stay at this football club. And I'd be quite as brash as that, but I think this season I couldn't give him more than maybe a 3 out of 10, and that's probably being generous. He's done now.
Well,
he'll do plenty for Scotland, though, won't he?
Yeah, he's done more for Scotland. But to move on, we'll move on from Ryan Fraser, and we'll go on to Joelinton. He's had a better season than his first season, but it was kind of one of them where he couldn't have done any worse type of thing. So for me, I think Joelinton, needs to get a. It's hard to rate Joelinton, mate. I don't know what to give him.
It is really, really difficult. If you are judging him as a £40 million number 9 club record signing, he has been an unmitigated disaster. However, during certain games this season, he has shown a hard work, some running. He scored 4 goals. He's played 31 appearances. He's been fit the majority of the season. But the top and bottom of it is, mate, he can't hit the side of a fucking barn. I know he scored 4 goals there this season, but to be honest, I mean, that nappy liner that he scored when the keeper dropped the ball literally at his feet from like half a yard out.
Yeah, you've got to be there.
I used to smash them in. When I was at secondary school, I used to smash them in myself. So I can't have that. And he sort of developed into a slightly more a utility sort of. He's either an attacking midfielder or played as a striker, and he's been professional. He's done the job that's been asked of him, I suppose you maybe say. But I've maintained all along, I think he lacks. He looks a tremendous athlete and stuff, but I think he's the only Brazilian who can't play football. And I think he lacks a certain football intelligence on the pitch, and little things like you score 1 penalty, you get another penalty. Now, I want my number 9 to go and get the ball and say, "Oi, me, put the ball down and score again." His mentality is, "Oh, I've scored my goal, I'll let somebody else have a go." And that isn't somebody, in my book, mate, that is obsessed with goal scoring. And I think your strikers and your number 9 needs to be obsessed with scoring goals. And I just don't think he's got it in his makeup, in his DNA. His shooting accuracy's got better. 48% it is at the moment. Passes per match, 18. I definitely saw a better Joelinton this season than previously. But I do not think, and I know it's not his fault about the transfer fee, and I know I'm going to be getting hate right now in the comments, but not a 40 million. When you're looking at Joe Willock at 20, and this lad's cost 40, and I know he's got Champions League experience and this, that, and the other previously, and I don't think Bruce helps him with the formation that he puts him in, but you're not going to get anywhere near £40 million. If you sold him, you'd be lucky to get 8 to 10 million in my book.
That may be, but I think he's still had a couple of decent games this season, which is why I've gave him a 5.
A bang average. Well, I think that's fair.
But then again, mate, it's higher than a lot of players that we've rated this season. So he's just had a run-of-the-mill type season. But what we're doing, we're keeping us down him, because personally, you're not going to get the 40 million for him. So, because I still have this thing under a different manager, he'd do all right. I think a better manager will get something out of him and make him play a bit better and help him develop his game, whereas it's a recurring theme like the Longstaffs, where these younger players are really suffering under Steve Bruce. So for me, as controversial as it be, I'd keep Joelinton.
I think you've got
to. I'd give him another season to prove his worth, but I really feel like another manager get more out of him. Don't get us wrong, he's not a first team player by any means, but as a squad player, someone who can come in, try and make a difference in games, sure, no problem.
Yeah.
But yeah,
he's gone up, mate. He's gone up from 30 from last season. He was 48% shooting accuracy. The previous season he was 30%. So you're looking at his stats, and his stats are getting better, but they're still a long way short of where they need to be. And I think the weight of that number is burning. Is back, and he'd have been so much better off letting Callum Wilson have the number 9, and just
yeah, well,
you know what I mean.
That's got to be a formality for next season. Wilson's got to be a number 9, but yeah, enough about Joelinton, mate. I think 5 out of 10, and keep.
Yeah,
Not bad, I suppose, but time to get a bit positive. I think time to go for the main man, Alan St. Maximin. For me, absolutely every time he's played, he looks like he's going to do something to the opposition. For me, 10 out of 10. Absolutely fantastic. He's been made. On and off the field, he's been absolutely brilliant. That latter end of the season, he was unbelievable. Ripping teams apart. That second half against Burnley was absolutely outstanding. We've got to give him the plaudits he deserves. 10 out of 10, and
definitely.
probably one of two candidates for player of the season for sure. So yeah, keep and 10 out of 10. I mean,
Yeah,
you can sing his praises, mate, but yeah, just
he's
answer maximum. What
absolutely
more needs to be said?
fantastic, mate. What can you say? I mean, we have missed him this season. Not sticking up for Bruce, not at all, but we have missed him with having the COVID situation where he missed football, and then coming back. And I think there was a little period where I think with COVID, and I was just saying this to the missus actually, when you get the jabs and stuff, it knocks you for six again a little bit further down the line. So for obviously a high end athlete like him, no doubt it had a knock on effect. We missed him so much when he was out, and we have had such a lift when he's come back and available. Opposition defenders are shit scared of him. It doesn't know whether he's going to go left, right, straight through them, whether he's going to dribble through, literally, try little turns, bits of skill. He can open the key to the door. And in tight games, because we've not got the best squad in the world, he can be a difference maker, and different makers, the value on them. I've heard talk about 70 million. I wouldn't sell him for 70 million, mate. I think he's too important. And like you touched on with Willock, he's the sort of player that you need to build your squad round. So when we signed him, he was relatively unknown, young, bags of potential, a little bit rough around the edges. That's what we've got to go for. I think he's come into the area. He's the connection with the fans. He gets the fans. He's helped out with the food bank. Also, the kids at school with the switches and stuff recently. There's a synergy between the fans and him and the fans. There's a love, and I think he likes feeling them again. The main man, he likes the love from the crowd, and I think with fans back in St James's Park, I think he'll play even better. But you just got to watch when defenders literally 4 or 5 of the opposition's defenders just jumping on him. The only thing I will say is he's getting lots of knocks and stuff because I think he's not getting much protection from referees.
Yeah, he's getting kicked to shit.
Kicked to shit. So I think that needs to be looked at and stuff. Lots of niggly injuries because we're so desperate for him to play every minute, mate, because he's such a huge player for us, but definitely a contender for player of the season, despite missing big chunks of it because of COVID. But again, it's not his fault that he's not been available and stuff like that. But when he has been available, he's offered so much to Newcastle, and we've got again so much to thank him for. That any other score apart from 10 out of 10, and you'd be off your tits.
Yeah, pretty much bang on, mate. I mean, yeah, just a fantastic player, fantastic ambassador for the people in Newcastle. He's probably one of the fresh things about this football club. And
most
with
exciting.
what he said about the club needing ambition to keep him, I totally agree. He deserves a club that want to go forward. He deserves a club that want to compete because he's a fantastic player, mate, and he shouldn't waste himself at a club that don't want to compete. I mean, like, I love Newcastle, but the way it's run, it's pathetic. Look at the players that have left over the years: Kabay, Remy, Bar. All these players, quality players who've left with because we're not ambitious enough.
Yeah,
managers left with, because the establishment holds this club back from anything other than mediocrity and staying in the division. That's it. And that's why we need to take over so much. But that's That's a
separate
different
one.
podcast video for another day, but we'll move on to Miggy. I think Miggy's had a solid season, Paul. I don't think he's been like a top contender for player of the season, but I think he's been fairly solid. I'm gonna give him a 7 out of 10. I think he's been decent. He had that thing in January where he was heavily linked with Atletico Madrid, and his agent was spouting shit. But yeah, I like Miggy. He works really hard for the team. He's a massive part of that press that the team do. Wins the ball back constantly. Has to play out of position constantly. But
Needs to
yeah,
play in his proper position, mate. I've banged on about this since he's came. Before when we were on NFTV, banged on about it. Still banging on about it now. Play Miggy in a more central role, and you see a better player. 34 appearances this season, and he has literally ran his socks off, mate. He's covered every inch of turf at St James's. He's put everything into it. 4 goals, 34 appearances, 11 wins during those games. The odd game that he has been injured, we have again. I think we've missed him again. A lot of the time, opposition will put 1 or 2 players just on him, and he creates panic. But yes, I think he's capable of scoring more goals. I think he can add that to his game most definitely. I think a 7 or an 8 out of 10 would be an absolutely perfect and perfectly reasonable score for him. Yes, there is going to be teams that are interested in him, and I hope we don't sell him. I wouldn't sell him personally.
no.
But again, we're talking about the club needing to show ambition to keep these sort of players. But again, I think he's another player that the fans love because he plays for the shirt, mate. He always puts the shift in, even if it's not going perfectly right for him. But I would implore Bruce to play him more centrally and to give him what he wants. But, mate, he's played as a striker. I mean, I know when Graham Jones first came in, he played him as a striker. He played Callum Wilson off to the right and then ASM on the other side and stuff, different variations. And that helped Callum Wilson get a few goals and everything. He's not complained. He's not whinged. And again, he's another player. He just gets the fans, mate. He gets the fans. He gets the system. And I think most Newcastle fans love him to bits.
Yeah. Well, I'm one of them, mate. He works so hard. He's just got that fight. He's got that willpower, and he's got the ability as well. Just the only time he's played centrally this season is either too far forward or too far backward. He hasn't been played in the right position under Bruce at any point. Last season, he got a little bit of a run where he did get played in the 10, and he did really well. And they changed the system again, but with Steve Bruce, that's what you get. You get unpredictability because he hasn't got a flipping clue. But
you get headaches as well.
You've got to keep him. You've got to keep Miggy, and you've got to give him a 6 or 6, 7 or 8 out of 10. I think would have been a fair assessment. But we're on to the final 3 now. We'll do Carroll and Gale together since I think both of them were pretty flipping shit this season. Honestly, mate. Carroll, Gale struggled to get in a team with an injured striker for half of it. I've still got Miggy on the screen, so I'll take him off. But they've just been abysmal, mate. I'd say maybe 2 out of 10 for the 2 of them.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, what two goals in between the lot of them, a goal each, something like that. I don't need to bring the stats up to know how absolutely atrocious. Look, I'm not taking away from the fact Dwight Gale was fantastic especially during the championship campaign, but the writing was on the wall, mate, for that lad when he went away down to West Brom and we brought Rondon up here. Clearly, we didn't rate him at that point. We brought him back. Bruce has waxed lyrical about this lad, about how much he's wanted to sign him, blah, blah, blah. But then again, shows that Steve Bruce talks verbal diarrhea because he never, ever picks him. And he'll bring him on for literally the dying moments, the dying embers of games. When he has played, he looks disinterested. He looks half-hearted. He looks as if I can't wait until I get my next move to my next club. A 3-year contract has been offered to him, but he hasn't, up to now, nothing's been confirmed of the club about him accepting that contract. if he was to sign for that, I would only hope that the club are thinking about a possible resale onto a championship club. He is a high-end championship striker with the greatest of respect in the world, but he's offered very little to Newcastle this season. He's constantly injured for large periods. And from what I've heard, he's a bit of a hypochondriac and stuff as well behind the scenes. He's always got aches, pains, niggles, complaints, never stops whinging and whining. I would sell all day long, bring in whatever transfer funds you can.
Yeah,
Andy Carroll made, one goal. Again, I don't take away from the fact what he can do as a bit of a cheerleader in the background and stuff, but could he not be a coach or something like that? Because I just don't see he deserves one of those 25 slots. We need players who can come in and make a difference. And I was reading Gibbo, he was on about them recently, and he was saying, if we're just going to keep the same players, we're either going to stagnate or we're going to go backwards. And, Andy Carroll, as soon as he comes on, mate, if he farts on the pitch, the referee blows the whistle and it's a free kick giveaway. Yeah. He's from a bygone era. You can't get away with jack shit on the pitch. He constantly gives up. He's just giving away free kicks and stuff like that all the time. It's not his fault, but the game's moved on. It's not the Andy Carroll of old. He's not even particularly a handful of corners and stuff like that. He's probably better if you're winning a game to bring on for a little bit of nous and aerial advantage at the back to defend a lead, as opposed to looking for a goal to try and nick a draw or get a win. Not up to the required standard, mate. And everybody else is progressing. Look at Aston Villa and West Ham's of the world. They are getting better. Meanwhile, we're going back to Andy Carroll. It just reeks of desperation. It reeks of cheapness. Lee Ryder saying, well, I'd keep him and stuff. I'm of totally opposite thing. I'd get rid of him. I don't care whether he's going to come in, Lee, as fourth choice. I really don't give a shit. I don't want our fourth choice striker to be unable to score goals. As much he's a local lad, I get all of that. And it's not personal. I think he's a cracking lad and this, that, and the other. But from a football perspective, I look at him and it's just like it's either Shrek noises, donkey noises, or it's dinosaur noises. I'm just like, they're bringing Andy Carroll on, for fuck's sake. All that's going to happen is the referee is going to give the opposition 5 or 6 free kicks, and all of our attacks will just literally peter out into.
Well, he didn't get a time to make a foul last. He didn't get a time to make a foul against West Brom. 23 seconds and that. But it's just pathetic. I totally agree, man. 1 goal in 2 seasons, it's not good enough. I know he got 3 assists in his first season, but 4 contributions in 2 seasons. If that was Joelinton, they might have been searching for his head on a pike.
Totally agree,
for me, Carroll is not that player. They need to sell Carroll in the summer, release him, and get rid of Gale as well. I think I wouldn't give either of them contracts, to be honest.
No. I'd thank them for what they've done for the club. Don't get me wrong; it's not personal with these players. It's certainly not personal at all. You thank them for the contribution, but it's time to move on. Time to move on.
They've both had good periods where they've been the main man at Newcastle. Both players, Gale and Carroll, they've both had the time where they've been the main man, and it just not now. I think it's time to move them on, find new clubs, and enjoy the rest of your careers. For me, but on a player front, I wanted to end strong. I wanted to end with Callum Wilson, the people's number 9, we should call him, but it's not spoken about enough, mate. It really isn't. 17 contributions in 26 games in this Newcastle team where we struggled to score goals. At one point, we went no goals in open play in 10 games under a manager like Steve. And Callum Wilson over the season has managed to really have a decent season, have a really good season. I feel with more chances towards him, he would have scored more. Because on the scraps that he got, he still managed to score 13 goals in the season, which is I think it was 14 goals they scored.
12 in the league, wasn't it?
Well, it was 12 goals then he wanted to score. 12 goals.
5 assists,
Phenomenal.
mate, as well. It's not just his goals,
Yeah,
mate.
17 and 26. It's unbelievable, mate. It's unbelievable. And for me, he gets a 10 out of 10. He's the other contender for player of the season for me, alongside Maxi. In terms of a number 9, I don't think I've seen as good since probably Shearer, or if I put my camera up, him. In terms of goal scoring ability.
Yeah, he's up there. He's Shearer, Coles, your Demba Bars. I think I really like Demba Bar as well. Thought he was
just got that natural knack of being able to score goals. He's just got that natural ability to be in the right place at the right time and to score goals. And he's got that killer mentality as well, where he wants the ball, he wants the penalties, he wants the pressure, he wants the he wants to be the man of attention. Do you know what I mean? Scoring the goals and stuff like that. And that's what I want my number 9 to be. I want him to be a shithouse. I want him to be flipping, wanting more and more and more and wanting better. I mean, he scored 2 against Leicester away from home. Oh, I'm good I didn't score me hat-trick. I want that mentality. You know what I mean? That's the number 9 I want. You know what I mean? I want that. I want me straight to be critical of himself, even though he's been flipping great in games. And yeah, for me, got to keep in 10 out of 10, 100% for me.
And this should prove. The thing is, if you're a Lee Charnley, yeah, heaven help yourself. But surely you look at him and you think, oh, we've signed a proven striker and he scored goals. Oh, isn't that a coincidence? Why did I waste £40 million on Joelinton who wasn't proven? Now, his shooting accuracy at 41% is actually lower than Joe Willock's, but you're totally right. His obsession with scoring goals. He's a perfectionist. He is a goal whore. He's obsessed. That's all he wants to do. He doesn't want any of the other fancy stuff. He wants to get the ball in and score. He scored penalties. I do take that. But in a team that is played so Bruce ball, to score the goals that he has, it's been fantastic. 26 appearances made. He has missed a few with injury, but this is why we need rid of your Gales and your Carrolls so that we've got somebody else. I've heard Josh King mentioned recently, somebody else who you can bring in and rest him, because at the moment, mate, if we're playing Wednesday, Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, so on and so forth, he has to play every time, because what's your alternative? It's probably playing either Joelinton up top or it's playing Miggy up the top as a false 9 with somebody else to the right and some combination of playing ASM up there by himself, which I don't think he enjoys as much. Callum Wilson is, to me, he should have got more respect internationally. I think he's he's one of the best goal scorers that is in the country available for England. It's only because Southgate is so biased towards anything to do with Newcastle. I think that he doesn't get into it. But every time he is on the team sheet, you think we have a real chance of getting a goal here because Callum Wilson's playing. And he's been a fantastic signing. Got to be player of the season. I know ASM, I think if ASM had been fit more often, I think we might have pushed ASM past. But the goals, the assists, the focal point, we've been crying out for a striker for so long, like we're crying out for a central midfielder now. But Callum Wilson, what a buy. Him, ASM, and the Gateshead Guardiola have got to be signings of the bloody season, mate.
100%. Couldn't agree more. Just to add one more thing on the wannabe number 9 next season for me in any way. If he can stay fit, he's capable of 20 goals a season. Just needs Gateshead Graham to continue to work his magic in the wing-back system, and he'll get chances, and with chances comes goals for Callum Wilson. So for me, keep Callum Wilson 10 out of 10, and he got player of the season from the players, but obviously we picked Maxi, but it could have been either or. But
you can pick either of them.
I can't say any negatives about me. He's just a brilliant centre forward. But at the end, we've got to end on Steve Bruce, mate. And yeah, we could probably have done a 2-hour podcast on this on its own, but rating Steve Bruce's season, what a frustrating season it's been. Like, I know he got manager of the month in April and we ended the season pretty well, but for me, the difference maker was after Brighton, Graham Jones was allowed to work with the team in a wing back system, and that worked very well. My issue is people saying, "Oh, why don't you give Bruce credit?" and all these farm boys like Luke Edwards and people like that. Why can't you just give Steve Bruce a bit of credit? Because if you're a football person and you watch football and you watch Newcastle every week, you would have seen at the start of the season when we played a wing back system, when we were parked in one box and we couldn't get out one half, and we had 30, 40 shots upward per game, and Carl Toller was constantly pulling them out the shit. Comparing that under just Steve Bruce with his Steves to when changed the formation last season after Brighton, wing-back system, back to a wing-back system, and Graham Jones working with, well, pressed high, we pressed in the midfield, we looked a lot more tactically set up, and we pushed forward and we tried to get more chances by pushing the wing-backs forward. Now, you can't tell me Steve Bruce, after 20 years of experience, suddenly learned how to mobilise a wing-back system coherently in 5 months after failing to do so for 20 years. Like, for me, it doesn't add up. And like, yeah, Steve Bruce has the role, he's head coach, and like, yeah, he's going to get manager of the month. But for me, the changes didn't happen until Graham Jones came in, because the writing was on the wall when he came in. We hadn't scored many goals. We had injuries. We were falling towards the bottom three, and like, it was really worrying. And then Graham Jones came in. We beat Everton, and things like started picking up. We played well against Everton on the day, but for me, Steve Bruce deserves absolutely no credit at all. Like, yeah, like the pro Bruce brigade, if there's any, might say, why can't you just give him a bit of credit? I can't give him credit, mate, because that Brighton performance, or all the performances before games where he'd be like, "Oh, this isn't a must win," or he would constantly attack the fans. He'd have a go.
And that is exactly why, mate, you can't give him credit. Why should any fan give that man credit when he is consistently and repeatedly attacked the fan base? And then he's masked it by saying it's my limited vocabulary and this, that, and the other. Well, my limited vocabulary tells you, Steve, clear your fucking desk and don't let the door hit you on the way out. That's my limited vocabulary, because he's been an absolute fraud. You listen to Bobby Robson talking about the fans and apologising after a poor result. I feel sorry for the fans, this, that, and the other. That man couldn't give a shiny shit about the fans, and he's the luckiest man in the world that there's been no fans in the stadium for 99% of last season. He's totally nutty, had more jam than Hartley's. He's rid by the seat of his pants. This game, like against Spurs, we didn't deserve anything out of that game at all, and we mugged them. Absolutely mugged them. Not through 20 years of experience or any sort of a game plan. It was sheer Bruce luck. I talked about a shit sandwich previously. That middle section, when we had like 20 odd games and we had 1 or 2 wins in it, was reason for his P45 alone. He should have got his P45 after the Sheffield United game. He should have had it after we lost to Brentford reserves. He should have had it against the Brighton absolute farcical display. And then all of a sudden, the gate of Guardiola comes in, England's own. And then all of a sudden, we have a little bit of a splurge of decent results. And then all of a sudden, he gets the manager of the month. But that does not wallpaper over the cracks that we're in for those months and months and months where we couldn't hit the side of a barn, where we couldn't defend to save our lives, where Steve Bruce made mistake after mistake. He was blaming S.Longstaff for the Sheffield United game when it was everything to do with him and what he did and how he set us up. You're blaming players and throwing players under buses and you're wondering why we're not scoring when we've got like 2 holding midfielders, 5 defenders playing at the back, and we've got nobody forward. When we've got like 15 and 16% possession stats, what do you expect us to do when our possession is so low? You know, these are not things that are difficult to see. But the Bruce Brigade, so you've got like Hairy Hands and people like that, and Tim Sherwood spouting shit off. You've got Simon Jordan pretending that he's got a football, intelligence when it comes to Newcastle, and they haven't. Steve Bruce has been a lucky man, and I hope that this season, over an apple crumble with his missus on holiday somewhere, that Mrs. Bruce says to him, "You don't need this stress, Steve. Stay at home and get some of the jobs done around the house. Yeah, you don't need the stress of being Newcastle United manager," and that he leaves and goes, because you know it, I know it. He's a fraud Newcastle United supporter. He's a Manchester United supporter. You've only got to look back at historical stuff that he's done in interviews that he's done. He uses the same tired excuses time and time again. It's never Steve Bruce. It's always somebody else. And if it isn't Steve Bruce having a go at fans, mate, it's his son, Alex Bruce. And the apple doesn't fall very far from the tree, and it certainly doesn't in this occasion. That man has been a legitimate fraud, and we have had to suffer through Bruce Paul. And I will not be told by a Southern journalist who might watch us 3-4 times per year that the football at Newcastle is fucking shite. Absolutely shite. And we have survived through a combination of the 3 teams who have gone down have been absolutely dog shit, and then we've got a few special players to be able to stay up. There's major problems in our club that need resolving by somebody with a set of balls and a little bit of common sense, and who will stand up to the club. And I just don't think that man is Steve Bruce. He needs to be relieved of his duties. He's useless, and I tell you what, the club got him out the shit by putting the sticking plaster of the Gator Guardiola in. When they brought him in, mate, they put him on the website, and it was just like he was a manager. He was in his suit. They did his interview like he was the manager, and they were preparing to bring him in to help save the situation. And if it hadn't worked with Bruce, they'd have got rid of Bruce, and he would have seen us over the line for the rest of the season. I've no doubt about it. But as it turned out, despite Bruce sending them to the stands, do you remember for the Crystal Palace game? He sent them to the stands.
I do.
He has made foul decision after foul decision, and I'm just glad that we've remained safe this season. But let's pray to God, mate, that he's not our manager next season, because he's absolutely fucking useless. And he's up there to me with Joe Kinnear. He's probably worse than John Carver.
John Carver, he's in that category.
He's worse than all. He's worse than all of them. He's absolutely. He's been backed financially. You can't say that the club hasn't backed him. He signed off on the Joelinton deal, and that tells you everything you need to know there in the first place. But yeah, if it was keep or sell, I'd sell him. I'd walk him for a long walk of a short pier. I'd take him anywhere he wants to go. I'd treat him for an apple crumble if it meant him leaving the club permanently. He has insulted the intelligence of the Newcastle United faithful, and for that is just not what you do. We're one of the most loyalist fan bases in the land, and you have sold us down the land. And literally, we didn't hear of him during that 21 games. We didn't hear of him, but as soon as he won a few games and got his manager of the month, which should have been given to Graham Jones, let's face it, all of a sudden he goes on to TalkSport and he's chatting his shit. Well, like I said before, clear your desk, don't let the door hit you on the way out.
The second he got anything going his way, one win, he was straight on the attack. Oh, look at me. It's like, nah. No, just not. He's not a fan of this club, and he shouldn't be the manager of this club either. Good riddance to Steve Bruce. But with the way the club's run, Steve Bruce will remain for as long as we've got these owners. As far as I'm concerned, if they take over Fallsborough, I think Steve Bruce will get a new contract, and they'll just keep going until they find another owner to buy with. But it's a sad one to end on. But Steve Bruce only gets a 1 out.
0 out of 10.
And then, he's got to go, Steve Bruce. But we know he won't. But
Ungrateful bastards we are.
Yeah, we expect too much apparently, but I don't even know how we finished 12th. You know, it's the biggest miracle going that we finished 12th after spending.
Those 2 victories at the end of the season just papered over it and pushed us up, and we were top of a very bad bottom section of the table. But make no doubt about it, mate. You look at like what Aston Villa did. They literally stayed up by a VAR fucktardary, right? And the following season, they've pushed on. We're not going to do any of that. Steve Bruce talks about top 10. There's no way we're spending £12 million and getting into the top 10, mate, because we're a million miles off. We need a right back. We need a couple of central midfielders. We need an attacker, like striker, focal point striker, so your Callum Wilson style. We need Joe Willock signing up. You've got to be realistic. It's going to be another season of struggle with Bruce Ball, and unless the takeover happens, fall in attendances and increased fan apathy with the whole situation. So I think it's in everybody's best interest that we get this takeover done and we get the fresh start that the club, the ground, and the fans so desperately need and deserve. But yeah, it's the end of another distinctly frustrating and average season lit up by a few small moments and good results and freak results here and there.
Yeah, it's like you say, it could be another long season with Bruce. I just hope he's had his last game in charge, because that little run, you can see he ended on a high, and he needs you and see he had a good run or whatever, like you said, with Aston Villa. But as long as he's not manager, I don't care, mate. That's literally where I'm at with it. But yeah, I think that's literally where we'll bring things to a close, Paul. I mean, if you have sat with for the part 1 and the part 2 as well, fair play. I mean, after a full day of graft the day and then 3 hours recording, I'm absolutely shattered. I'll be honest, as we record this is 11:45, so you kind of say we're not committed. But it's just a couple of things to mention. We'll know of the takeover stuff that's been mentioned. I'm going to do a video on that when more comes out about the Premier League response, in quotation marks. England, Paul's doing a preview for in Man Navan, and I'm going to do the review for, and then we're going to cover the England games as we go. Not going to cover everything, just the England games, because that's where our peak interest is, and then we'll start doing the regular podcast again with the weekly stuff. We might tie in a Q&A in there as well, and then as we'll go towards another season where we'll be doing the match reviews on both Spotify and YouTube. So plenty to come. Still a couple of more announcements to be made between now and the start of the season here at Magpie 24/7. But as always, we really appreciate you getting involved with whether that be on YouTube, Spotify, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, any of them. We really do appreciate it. But I think we've kept you long enough. So I'll let you go for now, and we'll see you on the next podcast, everyone. So we'll see you in a bit.
Keep it 2.